And there is breaking news in the very weird world. There is the one that F's. The one they call Franco Colapinto, man who looks like Ayrton Senna, has signed for Alpine. Oh, the humanity, not replacing Jack Doohan yet. Though the BBC reports, Andrew Benson of the BBC reports, that Franco Colapinto is to be Alpine's reserve driver this season after signing a multi-year deal to join the team from Williams. Oh, the humanity, ladies and gentlemen. What are we doing here? How can Jack Doohan even rest? Therefore, there's been a lot of talk about Fabio Briatore always getting what he wants. Indeed, you might argue that that's one of the oldest truisms in F1 history. Michael Schumacher, Benetton settings, bending, breaking the rules. He said of Franco Colapinto that if there's a fast driver on the grid, then he will do his utmost to get him. There's chat about him being in Alpine, being in for Franco Colapinto when he was doing one of these, but then he went and crashed. Everybody, Christian Horner at the time, Red Bull, were also in for Franco Colapinto then, but then he went crash after crash after crash. He couldn't help but yeet it into the barrier, and everybody backed off. All of a sudden, the Franco Colapinto trail went cold, but no longer, as Alpine are taking the plunge, turning the screw indeed on one Jack Doohan before he's even turned the wheel proper in 2025. Andrew Benson of the BBC continues, the 21-year-old caught the eye of rival teams when he completed 9 races for Williams at the end of last season after they dropped American Logan Sargent, pushing therefore one Alex Albon. Alpine have negotiated a deal to remove Colapinto from his long-term contract with Williams, where he was a development driver. Williams had no room for him in a race seat this season, as they already had Carlos Sainz Jr. and Alex Albon. Alpine executive advisor, is he an executive advisor? Or is he an executive director? I suppose it depends on whom you are talking to. Fabio Briatore said, clearly Franco is among the best young talents in the sport right now. It is fair to say his appearance on the F1 grid last year caught many, me included, by surprise, and his performances have been very impressive by a rookie driver. No kidding, Sherlock. He was good, and he looks like Ayrton Senna, and he's got the charisma, and he has the sponsors too. Carlos Slim now has a $20 million hole at which he needs to point someone. Why not Franco Colapinto then? Indeed, Carlos Slim has told you that he would happily lift and drop his Checo Perez sponsorship and point it at Franco Colapinto. Benson continues, We have had an eye on the future, and his signing means that we have a great pool of young drivers to call upon and work with in developing the team for future years. Colapinto said, Williams turned my dream of racing in F1 into reality, and I will always be grateful for that. Now, however, it's time for a new chapter, and to take on this challenge with Alpine is truly an honour. Williams team principal said as follows: Franco clearly showed he's deserving of a place in F1, and we always said we would support him to get that. Williams has one of the most formidable driver lineups on a grid in 2025 and beyond in Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz. So we believe this agreement with Alpine represents Franco's best chance of securing a race seat in 2025 or 2026. Oh, the humanity. Alpine said Colapinto would attend a number of Grand Prix next year or this year even, and share driving duties in the team's program of testing previous cars with fellow test and reserve drivers Paul Aron and Rio Hirakawa. Interest, continues the BBC's Andrew Benson, from a number of Argentine sponsors, keen to back Colapinto, increased his attractiveness to teams as aforementioned. Red Bull were considering signing him for their second team, Racing Bulls, in 2025 and had talks with Williams about a release. You'll recall Christian Horner coming out of the Williams motorhome. That's what he was doing allegedly, but their interest cooled after a series of race crashes for Colapinto in Brazil and Las Vegas. But Alpine maintained their pursuit and have tempted him away even with a long-term deal. The announcement on Thursday made no mention of a potential race seat for Colapinto, but one has to assume his joining Alpine increases the pressure on their rookie driver Jack Doohan, who they have signed for a race seat in 2025 alongside Pierre Gasly. Lest we forget, Doohan last year, when he had his opportunity, he wasn't fantastic because the son of Mick Doohan, MotoGP champion, 5-time MotoGP champion, he was 0.5 seconds off, wasn't he? Pierre Gasly, his teammate in race pace. What are we doing here, ladies and gentlemen? This is F1 flotsam jetsam. And I think looking at that, Fabio Briatore knows, because real recognise real. He worked alongside Michael Schumacher and he will sniff a loser from a million miles away. If indeed Jack Doohan is that, then it would make sense that Fabio is already scenario planning in real time, getting himself the Argentine, one Franco Colapinto, good looking, charismatic, quick, risky, but quick yet and still. Of course you would get him in as a backstop, and that's what Fabio Briatore is doing under the umbrella heading of this. Fabio Briatore, some say, is there not to develop a team alongside Oaks et al. That he's been brought in to be a money man, a commercial mind, because that's what he is now and has always been. Foster rapport, curry favour with key stakeholders with a view to, in the next few years, sell Alpine, build up their asset value to 1.2, 1.3 billion potentially, and sell them off. That's what most F1 aficionados, guys and girls up and down the paddock are saying. And how better to do that than have one Franco Colapinto waiting in the wings in case the chap that they call Jack Doohan proceeds to drop the ball. If he's slow, if he keeps yeeting it into the barrier, Fabio Briatore will not hesitate to pull the trigger on doing the switcheroo, dropping in one Franco Colapinto, Argentine, charismatic, Ayrton Senna settings, comes with $20 million worth of sponsorship money year in, year out. Of course he'll put him in the car. What else would you do? Ladies and gentlemen, of course you would. And I say all that to say there is breaking news that Franco Colapinto will be on the grid kind of next year. Test reserve driver of Alpine under the stewardship of Oaks and Fabio Briatore. I think F1 is a better place for having Franco, for having an Argentine contingent that are dialed in. Of course it's a better place. Will we get an Argentine Grand Prix? Potentially at some point down the road. Is this reminiscent of Carlos Reutemann? Potentially. We'll have to see, eh? But I wouldn't bet against Fabio Briatore pulling that trigger in earnest, because if you know anything about Fabio Briatore, he's nothing if not a killer. He doesn't need a reason. He will not hesitate. Franco Colapinto now there at Alpine, waiting in the wings if indeed Jack Doohan proceeds to drop the ball, as so many are predicting he might. Ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, what are we doing here?